Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second webinar. We're again going to be trial and error today. Hopefully we'll have good luck with our electronic devices and with the technology, and hopefully it'll go well. Last time it did. For those of you who are interested, we did record the last one, and I did send that in the email this week. So you have last month's recording, or I should say in October, and then we will record today's, and we will also post on our YouTube channel, as well as I'll send that out through the network listserv. So if you, if anybody wants to see it who has missed the webinar, they're more than welcome to go on and watch it. Something that we've done different this time is that I did not send the PowerPoint ahead of time. I attached it to the chat box. So if you open up the chat box, you should be able to get a PDF version of the PowerPoint we're going to go through today. If that doesn't work, or if you don't see it, I'll send it after with the recording as well. I uploaded it on my end, but again, this technology is a little new for all of us, so not sure if things are happening or not. But I can send that again when I send the link to the recorded webinar. So welcome, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. So just want to remind you guys about the controls like last time. To raise your hand, you do have to open up that Manage Participants tab there. And then also being able to, if we want to share back and forth the screen, there's a couple of things that you'll want to become familiar with as far as the controls are concerned. So the participants, and then also actually the chat box, you'll probably want to have that open as well. And on this one, this kind of shows you where you can chat and where you can raise your hand if you have those tabs open. We do have folks on the SST site here. We have all of our PBIS folks here that will be monitoring the chat box. So if you guys do have questions as we go along, we're going to kind of try to pass the remote around this time and see how that goes, and people can maybe answer the questions that are on there, and we'll go along again and see how well that goes. Again, we're new at this, so please be patient if things aren't happening, and you can always post in the chat box if you're missing sound, or if there's something that you're not seeing, or something's not coming across very well. So please do that. So we'll start with our learning targets for today, and the first one is to utilize the PBIS surveys and how they're done. And we're going to look both a little bit at the Tiered Fidelity, or the TFI inventory, and the self-assessment, or SAS survey. Some of you that are on may already be using some of those surveys. And if you are not, we're going to talk a little bit about what kind of data that can give you as far as your adult implementation of the framework is concerned. We're going to have Christina from Brunswick share with us how she uses the QR code system in her middle school in Brunswick, and how that reinforces and reteaches behavior. And we're really excited to hear how that worked for them, and then kind of how they collect some of that data. We have some news as far as our local digital warehouse that we're going to start, and we'll talk about that at the end of the webinar. And then we'll ask you guys in the chat box to identify future meetings and webinar topics. And I just noticed that there's a typo there, not future, but future meetings and webinars. The one thing I can tell you is that our next webinar is scheduled for January 30th from 1 to 2 again. And we will be looking at clip charts, and we will be having Lauren from Miller School in Aurora share how their building has completely gone away really from the clip chart system, and how they have implemented other things in the classroom as far as reinforcing behaviors, and really what a change that's made for them overall, even as far as parent-teacher conferences are concerned, and just how they kind of do business. So that will be the topic of January 30th, as well as sharing our digital warehouse at that time and exactly what that's going to look like, and then any other topic that you guys may identify today. So that's what's going to happen next time. So let's start with the PBIS surveys, and I will just share with you a little bit of what the data is that you can get from those surveys, and then we'll go into Christina's presentation with what her data is and how she looks at those positive reinforcements using the QR codes. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the PBIS surveys can be found at that website that you see on your screen. It's pbisapps.org. For those of you who may use Swiss, that's also the platform, that's the same website you use to get to Swiss, which is the student outcome part of PBIS. But the surveys that we're talking about today, as far as the TFI and the self-assessment survey, those will both be available on the PBIS apps website. And I'll show you, after I show you some of the data, how you can look up that stuff, and if there's things that you want to download from there, or if you want to look at the actual questions, that'll be available to you as well. So we'll start with the Tiered Fidelity Inventory. You can see the definition there. That really is a tool that's used by the team to look at the building's implementation of PBIS. The one drawback about this survey is that it is only the team's perspective, which is why we're going to look at another survey in a minute if you want to get your building's staff and their perspective on it. There's another survey for that. But this really is looking at the adult behavior in the building, and if adults are doing what they're saying that we're doing as far as the PBIS framework is concerned. This is what your team uses. It has, to do Tier 1, there's 15 items. Part of that question, 3 of the questions actually revolve around a walkthrough that's done. And with the walkthrough, students as well as teachers are interviewed about what the expectations are and what kind of acknowledgements are used and how often they've been taught and the expectations and acknowledged or provided acknowledgement if you're a teacher. So that's really what this particular tool does. We would ask that if you are interested in using this particular tool, to contact your PBIS consultant, and they have access to all of the school's dashboard within PBIS apps to be able to set this up. Some districts, we do have coordinators within districts that can set this survey up, but if you're unfamiliar with it, we ask that you contact us first so we can show you how to use the tool, and then eventually if you would like to have the coordinator status to be able to give the survey and set up the survey and look at the data, that we can also help you do that as well. So when you give the Tiered Fidelity Inventory, you get reports in graph form. This is an example of what you could get from this tool. It's called the subscale report. And you'll notice that it's split up by all 3 tiers of the framework. And in each of the 3 tiers, the questions revolve around teams, implementation, and then evaluation of the process. So you'll notice this is actual data from a team that I work with, and you'll notice that they've taken this particular assessment. There are 4 different dates there, and you'll see that over time, they've increased their capacity in both teams, implementation, and evaluation at Tier 1, and then they took it one time for Tier 2, where you see those single bar graphs there for Tier 2 for those same areas. So when your team does this, you can then begin to generate reports to see where your fidelity lies. And what we talk about for implementation of TFI and fidelity to the framework would be, on this graph, would be a 70% or better on this particular report. So if you look here, if you look at Tier 1 on the bottom, you'll see on February 5th of 16 that this team had a 67%. So they weren't really at fidelity of Tier 1 until they took the assessment again on December 5th of 16. So they did the assessment, they did some work on their framework, they came back and they looked at the survey again. And this kind of shows you over time how you can use this to share with your team to see where you are. And again, the cutoff on these would be 70% at each of the tiers. And for those of you who are looking for acknowledgement and would like to go to the PBIS Showcase, we look at 70% at Tier 1 for bronze recognition, 70% at Tier 1 and 2 for silver recognition, and 70% at Tier 1, 2, and 3 for gold recognition. This last time we had 23 teams acknowledged in November, and most of them were bronze, but we had many silver winners that we had better than 70% at both Tier 1 and Tier 2. So that's something that you may want to look at eventually for recognition purposes, but more importantly, it really talks about your fidelity to the framework. Another report that you'll get that I don't have a screenshot of will be the actual items that people answered, so that you can look at the questions, so that when you begin to drill down your data, you can start doing some item analysis on that. I didn't show that to you because there's 15 different items and it gets kind of complicated. But you start with looking at some of these graphs and charts to see where kind of your team lies. Okay, so that is the Tiered Fidelity Inventory. The next survey we want to share with you is the self-assessment survey. This is also adult implementation, and this is what you give your entire staff. We always recommend that you give this to everyone in your school that utilizes the framework. So that would mean teachers, aides, folks in your office, folks in your cafeteria, custodians, possibly bus drivers if they're participating, which they should be in your framework. So this is really everybody in the building. They get their input by answering questions on the survey, and then you can kind of see where they feel the priority is going to be for you to make improvement, or where they think we're really very strong and this is what we're seeing happen in the building. The difference with this survey is that this is done by everybody in the building versus the TFI is just the team. And this really will give you an idea if your PBIS practices are getting to the classroom, the individual and the non-classroom areas. That's really important because your team may think they're knocking it out of the park and the team is working really hard, and they are, but it may not be reaching the classroom level where it's really, really important that it's reaching, or else the framework, you're not going to get the results that you want. So if you do this in conjunction with the TFI, it can be really very helpful. We recommend at least annually for both surveys to see kind of where you are, and then you use both of these surveys for action planning for the next year or the upcoming year. So the data that you receive with this will really tell you where your staff thinks, if they think that the practices are in place, partially in place, or not in place at all. And the nice thing about this survey is that it allows you to let your staff set priorities. So not only do they say it's in place, partial, or not in place, they can also say, this is really a high level of priority and this is really what we should be working on. Or no, maybe this is in place or maybe it's partially in place, but it's really not important right now. So we're gonna work, I would like to work on something else maybe that's more important to the building. That's one of the really nice things about this particular survey. When the other consultants and myself have used the survey before, even this graph, which is really pretty, is nice, but there's actually another report that you get from the items where you can really look at the individual questions and drill down really to the specifics of the framework, what's happening and what's not happening. I don't have examples of what those are, but I'm going to show you where you can look at the questions when this webinar is over if you want more information regarding the questions. So this is one way that data is displayed. The other way would be on what we would consider kind of like the non-negotiables or the essential elements within the framework. Do you have your expectations defined? Are they taught? Do you have a reward system in place? Do you have an error correction system? On this report, it's called a violation system. How do you monitor your process? How is the management going of your process? Do you have district support? And then what is the average of all these areas? For this particular survey, we look at 80% for fidelity, and really for the implementation average, you want to be at 80% and as close to 80% in the individual areas as well. So this will really tell you, again, if let's say in this particular example, the lowest I see that was taken on 4/27/18, it looks like it is the management. You might want to look back at those management questions. Oh, actually, it's the violation system. You might want to look back at those violation systems questions, probably your error correction, your ODR process, your majors and minors, to see what's going on there, because that might be a place where you might want to put more support. So this is another area that you can look at the data in. You'll see that this particular team took this survey twice. And again, you can see as you go along, you see trends and patterns that go along with the data that you're producing. So that's really, really good. And also, like I said, the items report is really good. And you can take a look at that on the website. When we finish up, I'll show you where all those reports can be found. So I'm going to just stop for a minute and ask, do you guys see any questions right now on the chat? Nothing yet. Okay, so if you have questions as we go along, guys, please feel free to put those in the chat. We have our folks here that are monitoring the chat, and that will be providing some responses as you guys have questions. The other thing I will show you before we move on to Christina and what she's going to share with us is I just wanted to pull up, if I can, from this PowerPoint, I'm not sure if it's going to let me, what the actual website looks like for PBIS, so you can look at where these surveys can be found. You have to be a coordinator to be able to initiate the surveys, but every district in our region has a coordinator assigned to them. So you just, if you're not sure who your coordinator is, you can let me know, and I'm Heidi. I can tell you who your consultant is, and they can set those up for you. So if you're looking on your screen right now, you see the home screen of PBIS apps, and there are many, many things on this website, but what I would draw your attention to is going to the applications drawdown and just clicking on where it says PBIS assessment. The 2 assessments that I just shared with you are on this page, as well as many, many others. But if you scroll down the page, in the middle of this page will be all of the surveys that they offer. In addition to the TFI and the SAS, there are student surveys, there are school climate surveys, there are the student surveys, there are safety surveys. Eventually, there's going to be some parent surveys, my understanding is, and there's all these other things that you can look at. But if you're interested in looking at either of the TFI or this SAS, if you just click on these active links, what it will take you to is the section with that particular resource on there, and there's all kinds of things from looking at the question. You can click on any of these things to get the questions. This one shows you where the coordinator form is. There's a guide for the TFI. If you do the SAS, if you click on it, it will share with you the actual paper copy of the survey, and you can see the questions. So that's where you can go to find the information regarding that. If you want to look at that before contacting your PBIS consultant, your educational consultant, you can look at those there. So that's there for you, and anybody can go on that webpage and utilize that. So I'll just pause for a second and ask again, any questions on the surveys before we go ahead and move on? We just wanted to give you a quick and dirty of what those are and what those can give you. And by the way, those are free. They don't cost your district or your school building anything to take. You just need somebody to be able to set them up and be able to download the responses. Okay, so I am going to attempt to share my screen with Christina. And let's see if I can do it this way. Christina, there you are. I'm going to make you the host, and then we'll see what happens.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, I can hear you.
Can you see anything?
I don't see anything. Oh, you know what? I think I have to share my screen with you, so give me 1 second. I am going to share. Let's see, do I share it here? That's my screen. Oh, you know what? Let me get out of the PowerPoint maybe. Okay. So I have you there. I am looking at my screen. I wonder if I can't do it from here. No. So you are now the host.
See, my camera's on, but I don't.
So maybe I know mine is not. Just give me a second, guys. Sorry about that. You share. Can I share? No. All right. I'm going to open up the video.
I see an option for a spotlight video, but I don't know what that means.
If you can email, do you have a presentation like PowerPoint? Because I can pull it up here on my side.
I have two, like a Google Doc. Here, let me.
If you send that, I'll pull it up on my screen.
What's your email again?
Heidi K at sst8.org. I thought when I made her host, we could share the screen. But if you go ahead, I'll open up my email and pull up whatever it is that's there, and you can speak to it.
I'm giving a form and a Google Sheet.
Okay. Okay, there you are.
What? In the organization.
Oh, within your organization.
All right, hold on. What if I take a screenshot of it? Can you open up the sheet, or you can't open that one either?
I'll go back.
Oh, wait, can you refresh that link, Heidi? I just changed the setting.
Okay, I have this. Is this what you need?
Yeah, refresh this one. There we go.
Okay. Do you want me to leave this up?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Hello. Sorry about that. So this is this school year we ended up changing to a online system for tracking our tickets. So we went to a QR code. So all of our teachers, I made them a little piece of paper that I copied on cardstock and laminated. I don't know if you can see me.
You should be able to control it. I've given you control of my screen.
Okay. Well, if you can see me at all at the top, I can see myself in the chat at the top. But anyways, I have this little QR code that I made for my teachers, and they each have 5 of them. So the actual QR code is linked to this Google form that you're looking at now on Heidi's screen. And it's the same form for our entire building. So kind of how the system works is when our students are being acknowledged for showing their Brunswick pride, our teachers will put one of our little pieces of paper down on their desk and tell them, you know, thanks for showing respect during this activity. I appreciate it. Here is the code, and the students scan it. We're a one-to-one district, so they go ahead and scan it on their Chromebook, and it links them to this form that you're now looking at in Google. So we made this form short, sweet, and simple. So the students just type in first name, last name. They pick their grade level. They check the category of PRIDE for our acronym. What were they given their ticket for? So they'll check performance, respect, etc. And then we have 3 different drawings that we do in our building. So they choose on there which drawing they're entering their ticket into, whether that's the weekly drawing, the quarterly drawing, or the semester drawing. And then they click submit. So pretty short, sweet, and simple. As I'm controlling your screen. Okay, there we go. So then it, if you're used to Google Forms, it spits out this Google Sheet where you can see this is all of our data. And I have over 10,000 tickets that have been submitted this school year already. So it's just a literal running list of timestamps for the kids and when they've submitted their tickets. So I go through and filter on Fridays, and I sort it by what drawing type they've entered their ticket into. So when we pull our weekly winners, we're pulling from, you know, looking on the side tickets, you know, 80 through 130 or whatever the week is. And then we just choose random numbers for our weekly winners. You can also go ahead and highlight these boxes and get this count down at the bottom corner. So that's a quick way to collect our data of how many kids turned in a ticket for the quarterly drawing this week, for the weekly, for the semester. You can also sort it by what they're being recognized for in this column, whether that's performance, respect, etc. You can sort it by grade level, all different ways to collect data. So it's been fast and easy. The kids love it. The biggest thing my teachers were concerned about is, well, what about Johnny? You know, this QR code is the same for every teacher in the entire building. So what if I hand this to Johnny and he scans it 50 times and enters 50 tickets, you know, in 2 minutes in class? Well, the joy of a Google form is that it's all time stamped. So if I see Johnny has entered 10 tickets in that time, you know, within 2 minutes, I doubt he earned all of those. You can address that with that child and make them aware that you can see it on the back end. And that's kind of helped stop that part of a potential problem. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing that a lot more teachers are issuing tickets because it's easier. Prior to this, we were printing out paper tickets and using those. So obviously it's cut down on the cost of paper, which has been nice. Also with paper tickets, we were hand counting all the tickets every single week for our data. So it's a huge time saver.
So Christina, can you talk a little bit about, I know another district tried to use a similar system close to this, and there was some glitches within Google that prevented them from, I think, clearing out, or they weren't able to, they wanted to not accumulate them, or something. Have you had any issues with the accumulation of tickets, or being able to start and stop like per semester or anything like that?
The only glitches we had so far was actually with the physical QR. The website that I went through to create the QR code did have a limit of how many times that could be scanned per month. So we hit our monthly quota very early. So once I got that figured out with the company, I haven't had any other glitches like that. In this data sheet that we're looking at, once I pull my weekly winners this Friday, I go in and highlight them and I delete their tickets out, because I've already recorded that data in a separate spreadsheet that I keep. So I don't keep all this data in here. So, when we get to winter break, and that's our semester break, I'll go ahead and clear out this whole sheet. So we're starting fresh in January. So I don't necessarily dump it from the form. I dump this data out of the spreadsheet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that would probably solve the problem that I'm thinking of that this school had. So how often do you do that? It's quarterly?
I have a weekly drawing, a quarterly drawing, and a semester drawing, but all the tickets are in this one sheet together. So every Friday, I go in, and my Pride Council, which is like my student council, students come in my office, and I give them, this week we have tickets numbers 400 to 500. Go ahead and pick our 5 winners. And they just pick random numbers. And once I've collected that data into my separate spreadsheet, then I highlight those rows and I delete it out.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to pause and ask if anybody has questions at this point for Christina. If you would populate the chat box, we'll give people a minute to do that.
I have to populate the chat box?
You don't. Anybody who has questions for you, Christina, populate the chat box, or raise your hand, and I can unmute you. I'll pull up the participants if anybody would like to speak. I can. Where am I at here? Here I am. I see any raised hands. I can also do that as well. And I don't see any raised hands at this point. Can you talk a little bit about, Christina, are you the only middle school that's using it, or are other people using it, and how is that going? And do you guys ever get together and talk about how it's working for you? Because I know there's 3 middle schools in Brunswick.
Yeah, 2 out of the 3 of us went to this electronic system this year. So Byzantiner and myself here at Willits went to the electronic system. Edwards kept their paper tickets, and that was simply because they had a new assistant principal intern taking over the program this year. So it just was, not time for them to make that change. So Jess and I from Byzantiner communicate a lot. We think it's going really well. We had the same little hiccups, but nothing major. Our biggest win for the 2 of us is that we're seeing a lot more tickets being handed out, and also the ease in the data collection and really getting quick data, not hand counting anything. We feel like we're definitely making a lot of progress that way.
Okay, do you guys, I think somebody I'm seeing something on the chat box. Did somebody?
Tad just chimed in support of the system.
Oh, okay, so Tad chimed in support of the system. Tad is the internal facilitator for Brunswick.
Yep.
He kind of handles, there's 11 buildings in the district, so he is kind of like the point person and the person who has to get all the buildings on the same page, which I'm sure is not easy all the time, but he is saying that it's been pretty effective.
Yeah, and I think the kids love it. The biggest struggle with Tier 1 when, we're 4 years into the process is things get stale and the kids get bored with the system. So that's why we chose to go electronic. The kids love using their Chromebooks. So we thought, why not, give them another useful way to model how they're using those devices appropriately in school.
Okay, great. And you get, how long have you been doing the electronic version?
Just this school year.
Just this school year? And how long you did a few years of paper tickets?
Yeah, I would say 3 years of paper tickets prior to.
Okay.
What type of rewards do they receive? So every week, every Friday, we draw 5 winners because our acronym, again, is PRIDE. So we pull 5 people for our acronym. And those are things that are free. So a hot thing is a half-day pass, a pajama day pass, an assistant principal for the day. So they get to sign up with me and be the assistant principal for their their Pride time period, which is like a structured study hall, and they hand out positive referrals to other students in their grade. They also love the exclusive lunch. That's a frequent freebie. So they get to sign out our conference room in the office, and them and 4 friends get to come into the office and have an exclusive lunch, and they don't have to sit in the cafeteria. So that's a hot topic for.
That's a hot one. I love the fact that they're actually giving the incentives out or the acknowledgements out, because that just fosters, again, the relationship peer to peer. It's awesome.
So we send, and I always post that on Twitter. Like I had one yesterday. So my student AP for the day was Andalyn, and she handed out, 40 positive referrals to her peers, which is just an awesome thing to see. And then quarterly, I do 4 $25 gift cards to a place of their choice. And they say where, and I say anywhere I can get it from Giant Eagle, it would be great. One-stop shop for me. So they get to pay $25 for their place of choice, whether that's video games or Foot Locker or Panera, Chipotle, whatever. And then for the semester, I do 4 $50 of a place of their choice on a gift card. So that's that. Could this be used in a district where students don't have a device to scan? I would say, I don't know. So I'm guessing that's not a one-to-one district.
I would imagine that's yes.
So I would say, having a device, whether the students are permitted to use their phones, because we know they're always on them. So if they have those in their pocket, they could scan with their cell phone, or if the teacher has a device in the classroom. So if the teacher has a district-issued computer, iPad, iPod, some sort of electronic device, you could always have the teachers, they use a school-issued device that's just in the classroom. You just need one for the kids to scan on.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the only adjustment I would see there. We did think about posting this QR code like on the wall so that the kids could just go up to the wall and scan, but then we thought, that you'd have that sneaky one who just kind of hangs out there and over your shoulder all class. So that's why we went,
Right.
And we wanted that personal connection.
Oh, right, yeah, and that's why you give that. That's why you give that feedback and you give that acknowledgement. It's for that personal connection. Yeah.
Right. And
I'm wondering if something like a Plickers could even be used. Maybe I know it's generally for to answer questions or as a formative assessment, but I'm wondering, you only have to have one device and kids have their own unique scanning. I wonder if Plickers could be used as, I don't know enough about it to be able to say that it would be able to, because that's usually for like questions. I don't know if they could use that too if they don't have devices.
Yeah, or I wonder if you could make, 30 QR codes for your class and you just have number 1, number 2, number 3, all the way to 30. And the kids,
kids have a unique QR code then.
Are numbered to the class. You really just need a way for them to input that data of their name, why they received it. And if you do a drawing or some sort of incentive for them to designate that on the form.
Yeah.
So I would say, if you've got some sort of technology that could scan it, that would be the solution.
Yeah. Anything that you've seen that was surprising to you in the data that you're collecting from just the positive? Because I know a lot of times we look at the negative behaviors and we try to see trends and patterns there. Are you seeing anything you expected, anything you were surprised to see as you look through the data as kids are scanning their QR codes?
Yeah, I mean, to look at my data compared from the past 2 years and the past 3 years is actually incredible about how many tickets are being handed out. So we've seen an astronomical increase in tickets handed out this school year. And to reflect off of that, I've also had the lowest amount of discipline so far this school year that I've had in the past 3 years. So that's huge. And also we have positive referrals that our staff write up for kids, like I said. So our staff is still writing those, and we've seen an increase in those as well. But our ratios are the highest they've been this year.
That's awesome. And it's so easy for the teachers to manage because it's not like managing a paper ticket.
Right. And you don't have to worry about kids, grabbing the stack off the teacher's desk, running some extra copies at home, those types of things.
So truly, what is the responsible of the teacher in the room when you're using this system?
All they need is, I've made these codes for them. I printed them on colored paper. I laminated and cut them out. Our office staff helped with that. And we gave them the stack of 5. So literally all they need to do is put it on the kid's desk, say, thanks for, showing integrity with this assignment and working well with your peers or whatever. And the kids scan it, fill out the form in 2 seconds, and they're done.
Okay. So there was a question. It sounds like this is really classroom based. Is the system being used outside the classroom for anything, like in hallway or other common areas?
Yeah, I mean, our office staff have QR codes in the building as well, so it's not just classroom specific, but also our athletics director, our middle school athletic director, is really trying to get kids to come to after school events to support their peers. So we just implemented a system about 2 weeks ago that the students bring in their athletic ticket. So if they went to the basketball game last night, they bring their athletic ticket from the game to the main office today, and they get to scan the code 5 times to submit 5 pride tickets, trying to, promote that positive interaction with peers at extracurricular events.
That is fantastic. That's a fantastic idea.
So we're concerned that might increase too many kids at the basketball game, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
You're going to have to manage the crowds then, right? With
Yeah, exactly.
The basketball games.
But we really do want our kids supporting, their peers at those type of events. So we'll see if it works.
So any signs yet of this wearing, we always talk about keeping it fresh, and you kind of mentioned that already. Any yet that this electronic system is wearing out yet, or are you seeing acknowledgements wear out? And how are you keeping those fresh, the acknowledgements themselves?
No, I mean, I keep my data, like I said, weekly. I'm going to pull it up really quick. I haven't seen any decrease in tickets or anything like that. So I think the kids are really on board. I think they like it, and I haven't seen anything of concern yet. Eventually I'm sure we'll have to spruce it up a bit, but so far so good.
Any thought of using this for teachers, like to acknowledge teacher behaviors?
Well, we're always worried about teacher acknowledgement over here. We haven't used the ticket system with them yet. They have a little bit of a different system. Our students also have a locker logo on their lockers that we design fresh every year, and we put it up and cover it with contact paper. And then our students receive Brunswick Bee stickers, and they fill up their contact paper, kind of modeling like the Buckeyes do with their helmets, for football helmets. So our teachers have the same logo on their classroom door, and they earn stickers on their classroom door logo for different things. For writing positive referrals, they get stickers. Other exciting things that we see throughout the day, we give them stickers as well. So that's our current acknowledgement system for our teachers.
And I have to say, being in the buildings and seeing that system with the stickers, with the contact paper, it's so cool to walk up and down the hall to see all the stickers, like on the football helmets. It's really cool to see that you guys have done that. I know you're doing that at all 3 of the middle school.
Yeah, all 3 of us do that. And then we also do like a mid-year audit where we kind of walk the halls and look for what lockers don't have any stickers. And then I send that list of names out to the teachers, and some of them are like, I wrote that, Sally, 10 positive referrals. She must just not be putting her stickers on her locker. Or, oh yeah, Mackenzie hasn't gotten a positive referral this year. So we kind of snag them that way to make sure that, you're spreading the love, so to speak.
Okay. Any, if anybody's listening on, any advice as to first steps or how to start this, or any recommendations on pointers that you might give folks who might want to start something like this?
You know, I'm always a fan of starting small. So if it's something, depending on the demographics of your building, the size of your building, that you're not quite sure if this is going to be successful or a total flop, you know, maybe you start with one grade level as a pilot to see how they do. We did that when we implemented our check-in, check-out program. We started with, you know, a small group of teachers and a small group of kids. It's just easier to make adjustments when there's less people involved. So that would be an idea that I would give, would be to start small. Or, you know, you could just get all in like we did and see if it was a sink or a swim, and go that way. So I would again keep it short and sweet. You know, passing out tickets doesn't take a whole lot of class time, and I wanted to design a system that wasn't interrupting class time. So that's why we kept the form short. We kept the QR codes readily accessible to the teachers. We gave them multiple copies so that, you know, if they're handing 3 out at a time, the kids could scan and hand them back. The kids don't keep them. I don't know if I mentioned that. They just put them on their desk, scan it, and then they give them back to the teacher.
And then are they reused?
Yep.
And they're reused. Okay.
Yep. They've got the same, they'll have the same ones all year. So.
And remind me again how many kids you have in your building?
About 650.
Okay, so about 650, and this has been manageable with 6, 7, 8. You're 6 through 8, right?
6, 7, 8.
And you've been able to manage with 650 kids doing this system.
Yeah, like I said, I've got about 10,000 tickets turned in so far this school year. So it's definitely, I think it's way more manageable than a paper system.
Absolutely.
Simply in the counting.
You guys are a Google district. Do you think that's easier for you to start?
Yeah, I mean, our kids are used to Google Forms, and they have those devices. Our staff is used to it. So again, you know, I think that helps get everyone adjusted.
Okay, I see Brian, and I don't see it yet on my computer. I think Brian just uploaded a photo.
Oh yeah, he put a picture. That's our locker logo.
Oh, of what the locker logo looks like. Okay. And I don't see it on my screen yet, but I think it's got to download. Okay. Well, I'm going to open up again back to the whole group. Any questions for Christina regarding, I would say, any of their QR codes? Christina also just did a presentation. Willits is a silver acknowledged building for PBIS, and she just did a presentation on what they're doing for Tier 2, specifically check in, check out what they're doing and how they kind of molded in a mentoring program. So if anybody actually has questions about that, I can even open it up to that, because it's not just Tier 1 they have going on. They have a pretty strong Tier 2 going on in the building too. So I'll give a minute just to see if anybody has questions about that. Any Tier 2 questions? Any questions about the use of Google, Tier 2, Google Forms, QR codes for her?
Yeah, I mean, similarly with Tier 2, our kids have paper tracking sheets, and we also have used Google Form tracking sheets with kids electronically. So we're trying to get things to be a little bit more efficient.
Right. And it sounds like it sure has streamlined things for you, because you don't have all the whole paper trail, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it was a lot last year when was our first full year of Tier 2 implementation. I was tracking all that data by day for all of my Tier 2 kids. So it's definitely.
How much time would you estimate you saved going to the system?
For the tickets?
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I wasn't hand counting those. My Pride Council, my student council kids were hand counting, but they would spend about at least 45 minutes a week counting paper tickets. Also, the thing that my kids did, which was, they thought part strategy, but they would hoard tickets. Like if they wanted to go into the semester drawing for the $50 gift card, they would hoard their tickets and dump, 50 tickets into the bucket at the end of the semester, which skewed my data because it looked like they got all those 50 tickets this week, which was not accurate. As well
That's
as
a great point.
it took them, 3 times as long to count paper tickets because kids were just hoarding them. So this is also streamlined and gave us more accurate data on specific days and times that kids are actually receiving their acknowledgement.
Well, I think it's given you some data also that there were kids that wanted that particular acknowledgement. So that's some data for you too, that was a pop for some kids. That was a very motivating, whatever it was that they were saving up,
right.
Very motivating to them. So that's a form of data too,
Right.
All
So
right.
yeah, I mean, on the weekly, I would say it saved us at least 45 minutes of just data collection, but holistically, a ton of time.
Yeah, I'm sure. Is there anything else that you would like to include on what you've shared with us today? Thank you so much for to do this and sharing what you guys are doing. I think it's fantastic how you have it organized. I think sometimes folks just have a hard time thinking about how to organize it, and I think you've done a very nice job of explaining how you organize it, how you use the data, how it impacts your decision making, how you change things up, and how you kind of flow in between your different platforms to be able to make your decision making, which I think is really cool. Is there anything else you can think of, Christina, that you'd like to share with people that might be beneficial?
No, I mean, I'll drop my district email in the chat if anyone wants to follow up. To me personally, you can always send me an email. I'd be happy to share anything about this or answer any questions about what we presented at the conference as well.
Right. If you saw Christina, some of you may have seen Christina at the PBIS showcase. So if you do have questions regarding Tier 2 as well, or what they're doing for their mentoring and their check and check out, she can answer those questions as well. They were really the first district that I had the experience of going through this whole process as a district, which was totally new at the time. We were really moving away from more of the building-based to district-based process. So if you have questions about that, it's a fabulous resource.
Yep, no problem.
The chat box will continue to be open. If more questions come up, we'll kind of go on to the next portions of our webinar on our web meeting. But thank you so much, Christina, for sharing that with us and always being so willing to do so, both in Columbus and from your office. We really, really appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Okay. So I'm going to come out of here and we'll go back to our PowerPoint. And we will go to the next thing on our agenda. And thank you, Christina, again, and Brian, who was also on that. Brian is the principal of that building, and thank you for sharing, you guys, what you're doing. It's really, it's great. So the next thing on our agenda is just to talk a little bit about, we received a request, and after our last webinar, we received feedback that it would be good for other folks as well, that if we do have some sort of sharing of resources, that people will find that beneficial. So what we have decided to do, and my coworkers who are with me here might not yet know, on our PBIS TBT, we'll be talking about it. It shouldn't be too hard to manage. But we are going to put together, it looks like it's going to be a Google folder of all of the things that we have collected on our end as a state support team, as well as anything you guys would like to share with us to share with everybody in the region. I think the way it's going to be organized, we've had initial conversations about organizing it around the TFI components. And Stephanie Denham had that suggestion, and I think it's a fabulous suggestion, because when we look at TFI, and for example, there are 15 items for Tier 1, there are different amounts for the other tiers. But what we talk about as far as implementation and having fidelity to the model, we talk about having all of these pieces in place from the Tiered Fidelity Inventory. So Stephanie's point was, why don't we organize the way we house this information with the TFI items as being the headers of those folders, and we'll just populate in what we've gotten either from people who've applied for recognition. Stephanie did a great job last year where she collected a bunch of this evidence. She's got it in a notebook, but she also has it in digital form. We're going to start uploading all of that, and we're going to give everybody access to those Google folders. But it's going to take us a little while to do that. So our goal is by our January 30th web meeting that we're going to have all that done, and we're going to share that with you so that you can see regional examples from Summit, Medina, and Portage County of what's happening with the schools around you, to see if that's something that maybe will be helpful to you or beneficial to see actual hard evidence or examples, pictures, forms, any other kind of artifacts that might be beneficial for other folks to see. So our goal is to have that out January 30th and to have that ready and to be able to share that link via this webinar. And that really is our hope for next month. We're going to work on it. It won't be too hard to set up the folders. It's just going to be getting everything in there. That may take us a little bit of time, but I think between what we already have saved with what some of you guys have sent us for recognition, as well as what Stephanie's already compiled, I think we should have a pretty easy time of getting that together. So that's our goal. Okay. So as we're coming kind of to the end of this time together, we want to open it up, and we're going to open up the chat box again. Are there any questions from the field right now from you guys? And this doesn't have to be about QR codes or anything else that we've talked about, that someone might want to post to anybody sitting on the webinar or to your SST consultants that are here, that you have regarding what you're doing in your PBIS framework, or if you need information about things. I'm going to kind of stop talking for a minute, and I'm going to allow anybody, if you have any questions for the group, to go ahead and populate that chat box. And I'm going to turn off my mic to do that. So I don't see anyone yet posting anything in the chat box, but we're gonna leave you with one last question, because our next webinar will be January 30th. The main topic there is going to be the clip chart system, using clip charts in individual classrooms. If you think you would have a question for the people that are going to be presenting, they're going to be from Aurora Miller School. If you have questions that you think might be great for them to address, could you please populate those in the chat box, as well as any other topic that you might want to see for the rest of the year? If you could populate that in the chat box for the next couple minutes, we would appreciate it. So if you have any questions or any considerations that we might want to address at the January 30th webinar regarding clip charts, clip up, clip down, as well as, are there any other topics that we have not covered yet, since we've only done 2 webinars, that you would like to see us do from now until the end of the school year? Could you please post that in the chat box as well? All right, I'm not seeing any questions. Well, the webinar will be open for a couple more minutes, and you can post there. If you would rather email me, I will make sure the presenters have those questions before they present next time, so that they'll have some prior knowledge or have looked at them before we do the webinar. The last slide that we have to share with you guys today is, again, our next webinar will be January 30th from 1 to 2 p.m. We'll focus on those clip charts. Miller is going to talk about how they have pretty much, not entirely, but pretty much phased them out of their building, and some of the unexpected outcomes they had as a result of that, and just how they've changed kind of the way they do business as far as behavior, providing feedback to students on how they act, really how they've really changed that in their building. So we are going to talk about that next time. The other thing that we're going to talk about, as I said, is we're going to hopefully roll out our regional warehouse of examples, and then anything else that you guys think of that you might want to continue to talk about. We are planning on trying to, at least every 6 to 8 weeks, or possibly monthly as we get to the end of the year, having a 1-hour webinar and inviting you guys in every time. This is really a time for you guys, if there are questions that you want answered, for you to get together to do this with us. So if there's anything that you guys think of that you want addressed, we're really happy to do that, because this is really about you getting the information and not having to come out of your office to get that. This webinar is being recorded, and I will follow this webinar with a network email that has the link. We do have a State Support Team 8 YouTube channel where not only you will see PBIS webinar videos, but there's also a literacy video. If you have to do a literacy plan, there's information there. There's some OIP videos up there, one specifically talking about what you need to do for a decision framework on our YouTube channel. So that is there. If not, it's not just PBS stuff. So that you can subscribe if you search State Support Team 8. That will be there for your reference as well. So the next time we will see you at our webinar series will be on January 30th. Again, clip charts and rollout of our warehouse and any other thing that you might want to talk about. So we do thank you for joining us today. And hopefully everyone has happy holidays. Stay safe out there, and we will see you guys in the new year.